for us as ActionSA, our views were known that we did not want to work with the ANC. But when we started realizing their partners playing games with them at the expense of the residents, we then said, no, we are not going to allow the city to collapse. And when ANC approached us, but also after consultation with our activists and our councillors in the City of Johannesburg and Ukuruleni, we said, let's accept working with the ANC to give them the numbers. I don't know if you're aware, in the City of Johannesburg, we are the third biggest political party with 44 councillors. So once ANC has got us and the IFP, then they don't have to worry about stability. This city can then be stable for the next 5 years. However, our conditions honestly fair, and fair to actually assist the ANC. We said, ANC, we as ActionSA cannot morally justify supporting you with the mayor, with Mayor Kwamanda. We said, please put in someone ethical, someone who can deliver with the necessary skills so that we can morally support this. That was obviously the first point. And secondly, we said, this whole issue that's putting and compromising you with it, 200 rands water surcharge, please deal with it. And then we're happy to really be your official opposition. You govern, take over as a mayor. We don't prescribe to you who must be the mayor, and we take over the legislature. Let's work together for our residents and stop making ANC vulnerable to the vultures and people that wants to sabotage them. So we're still waiting. We're supposed to have had a meeting yesterday, but I think understandably the Premier finished late last night, and I see today they're in their Lekotla. So they wanted to have a meeting with me today. Unfortunately, my day today, it's more than full. And when I finish here with you, I've got to go to a funeral in Amanskal. So the earliest I can meet with them is on Sunday. I hope they'll be ready, if they want to be ready. If not, we are still fine to continue. But unfortunately, residents of City of Johannesburg will still be vulnerable for the next 2.5 years. So ANC has got an opportunity to revive themselves and serve the residents of Johannesburg with our support.
Mr. Mashaba, let's dig further into that. With the issues pertaining to service delivery, you've just mentioned now the 200 rand surcharge pertaining to electricity as well as those smart meter users. And there are fears that this, of course, could drive residents off the grid. We saw this morning the city's dismantling illegal connections in Alex. So let's talk about the budgets that were actually, with your assistance, actually passed yesterday. Do they seek to address some of these, and are they going to be sustainable enough? And what are some of the timeframes that we're looking at for those
because we're not in government, so obviously, but if you look at that budget will address issues of service delivery, make sure that we maintain our roads, improve existing ones, build new ones, improve our substations in the City of Johannesburg and so forth. So all these issues are contained in the budget. And this is the budget which was passed by all these parties in council. But in this budget, the loan is part of the budget. But now, because of ANC not having the numbers, other political parties who've been working with them.
You said some parties were actually holding them back. Talk to us about those parties.
Yeah, well, you remember the ANC and EFF ever since 2021, they've always had a tiff regarding these two municipalities of metros, Ekurhuleni and Johannesburg. Kwamanda is not in as a mayor because ANC and EFF wanted it. They both wanted the position, and this was a compromise. But it's not the kind of person, this job, honestly, it's way, way beyond his competency.
But did they agree to the removal of Mr. Kwamanda as part of your
agreement? No, they've agreed.
So what are they saying, Mr. Mashaba? What is the delay in implementing some of your agreement and resolutions?
I can't speak for them. Please ask...
we're definitely going to get a response from them after the NEC.
Their own internal processes... They're supposed to have they wanted to, as I said, we were supposed to have met last night, but then they finished the legislature late. They wanted to meet today. Today I'm not available, and tomorrow I'll only be available on Sunday, because unfortunately there's negotiations with ANC. I've got to lead them myself. they are of such a serious nature that I'm not really prepared to take a chance without my involvement because we are not going to have a written agreement with the ANC. We have made it really very clear. We are going to work. So
what is the current terms of your arrangement right now?
We're going to work together on an issue-by-issue basis.
Okay.
And when you work on an issue-by-issue basis...
Does this mean you will vote together on certain matters or you will have prior engagements to such?
We've got to have... we must respect one another, be transparent, be accountable and so forth, so that if there's disrespect, there's corruption or there's malfeasance, we will not really vote with them. So, and the Premier gave, and this Gauteng team gave us that commitment. We said, we're happy. Because one thing that honestly, Alicia, wants South Africans to know, if you work with Herman Mashaba in ActionSA, we are not prepared to cover for anyone. And we don't want anyone to cover for us. I'm sure you are aware of what transpired in Tshwane with the DA, where they expected us to cover the corruption, and we thought not under our watch. We exposed the awarding of a tender to Edwin Sodi, where people of Amanskeral died, and they're still subjected to the dirty water.
So you have told the ANC, we will not be covering for you in matters of corruption.
Yeah, no. Get involved with us. If you feel you don't want to be held accountable, then don't try ActionSA, because ActionSA will never cover corruption and malfeasance.
Look, let's further that point, Mr. Mashaba. I mean, the issues of corruption are almost always at the height of why service delivery is actually hindered, particularly here in Gauteng. The high levels of poverty, as well as the infrastructure that you rightly spoke about, that has either been destroyed or stolen. Zamazamas continue to be a huge problem. So let's talk about some of your revised strategies as you put in place this current agreement that you do have with the ANC. What have been some of your key areas that you want the ANC to actually focus on?
I think the Premier has given me an undertaking that we will, as a matter of urgency, revive the inner city rejuvenation project, which I executed when I was the mayor, so that we can get the private sector to build affordable accommodation for poor people in our
The issue of illegal occupation of those buildings.
Illegal aliens in our city, we've got to get rid of them unapologetic. We must never apologize to anyone. Anyone who's in our city illegally, we are going to hold Home Affairs accountable to make sure that people are, the status of their presence in our country is illegal. If not, these people must be sent back to where they came from. We need these buildings. The private sector is ready to build affordable accommodation. And I can tell you the difference between our inner city program and Cape Town. You'll take Cape Town, for that matter, under the DA. World-class city, world improved. But at the same time, no provision for poor people. Whereas when I was running the inner city with the private sector, 30% of the units were meant to go to poor people paying plus minus 1,000 rand. We are not going to be a city where we forget about poor people like the DA does. And these are the conditions I've said to the Premier. I said, Premier, if we're going to rebuild this city, we are going to rebuild the city for everyone. We want our poor people to come and live in the city if they can afford.
Look, Mr. Mashaba, let's go back to the issue of your discontent around the current mayor, Mr. Kabelo Kwamanda. What are some of the issues there? Because we haven't heard reported incidences of corruption or how he's running his department. So maybe elaborate further as to why you as ActionSA, and then what is at stake should the ANC not implement that resolution as part of your agreement with them?
Alicia, remember when this mayor was elected, there was outcry by civil society, including poor people, when this man was involved in some burial scheme. I'm sure you've heard about this.
Yes.
How do you have someone as a leader like that, unfortunately? And look at the former Bree Street, Lillian Ngoyi Street. that explosion, it's already 18 months. Nothing is literally happening. They claim something is happening, but literally nothing is happening. That City of Johannesburg, every time I drive through, and I'm once a week going through somewhere, I'm ashamed of myself as a South African to see us South Africans, more especially South Africans are too scared to go into our own city. I don't understand when our own people can be afraid and be stopped from operating in our city. You take trading stalls in the city, owned by the City of Johannesburg, property of people of South Africa, taken over by people who are in our country illegally. And these are issues that when we address, people want to insult us. But fortunately enough, they can insult as much as we want. We've got laws in this country. We're a sovereign state. So these are things that Kwamanda is not attending to. You need a mayor who's decisive.
And who would you suggest then, as ActionSA, would be suitable? Should then the ANC implement your agreement against Kwamanda?
I don't think it will really be fair for ActionSA to prescribe to the ANC who they must put in charge.
So you're saying anybody but Mr. Kwamanda?
But please, whoever you put in charge, ANC, we beg you, make sure it's a competent person. The person must be go through your selection process. Make sure that you bring us a qualified person and a person with a moral compass, an ethical leader. That's all we're asking, so that we can work together. But at the same time, we are not saying it's a one-way stream. We are saying to the ANC, ActionSA deployees in the city, in the legislature, any one of them gets involved in anything, please hold them on the same standard that ActionSA is holding you on. Because I can't guarantee that ActionSA people are not corrupt or they will not do stupid things. So we're saying, let's hold each other accountable. And we must be transparent about it. If ActionSA person gets involved in malfeasance, please talk to us, or you can do whatever, but more especially corruption, don't tolerate it. And because us as ActionSA will never tolerate it.
Let's talk about Gauteng as being the economic hub of South Africa, right? And as you rightly mentioned, when you're driving through Johannesburg, the scenes are not gratifying, particularly if you are a South African. So what type of mechanisms as well as plans are you then trying to engage with the ANC robustly in trying to ensure that some of the aforementioned, like of course dealing with the issue of illegal immigrants as well as illegal occupation of foreigners in terms of government buildings as well. What type of conversations are you having around how to effectively address these? Because we know it's been part and parcel of the problem for about 10 to 15 years now.
Much more than that. I mean, that city, Alicia, just to really share with you, when Nelson Mandela was elected after the 27th of April 1994, ANC had a celebratory event at Carlton, at the ballroom, because obviously I'd spent a lot of money for voter education on behalf of the ANC. I was one of the lucky business person invited to this event at the Carlton Center. The Carlton Center was one of the best hotels in our country.
It's basically out of business now.
10 years into a democratic dispensation, closed down. Remember, across the street, there was the Johannesburg Sun. And you go back into our city today, Johannesburg is not safe for South Africans. You go to Pretoria, Sunnyside.
So the issues of safety.
It's even called some other places. They are not only, actually, there's the people, this foreign nationals, they're not only hijacking this, they finished our city centers. They are now going into the suburbs, going to
Melville.
Going into the south of Johannesburg, going to the places, including Sandton. And I'm warning South Africans, if we're going to sit back in this country, you think this hijacking is not going to affect you, I can assure you, they have already started going into the suburbs.
Mr. Mashaba. Mr. Mashaba, in closing, I have to address this point. I'm sure you've seen, of course, the recent developments between the ANC and the DA pertaining to the arrangement as well as relationship within the GNU, whether we call it the GNU or now it's the coalition that was masked by the president, according to Helen Ziller, just so that he could sell this coalition between the ANC as well as the DA. What do you make of all these developments, and do they affect your overall relationship relationship pertaining to
I
Gauteng?
can tell you without any shade of doubt, one of the reasons, obviously, many reasons, including making sure that I don't put my personal feelings behind a national interest. Cyril Ramaphosa and ANC are going to learn a hard way with the DA, one of the most arrogant, dishonest organization to work with. So it's up to them. And one of the reasons I feel we need to protect the ANC governance in the city of Johannesburg and Ukuruleni is to protect them being vulnerable to the DA. Because if they're not going to stabilize this and buy into Helen Zille and the DA, I'm telling you, poor people in Alexander Soweto will suffer like people are suffering in Khayelitsha and Langa in the Western Cape. I'm sure you know the service delivery of the DA in the Western Cape. I can tell you my first visit to Cape Town, and I went into the townships in January of 1985. Going to those areas 30 years down the line, the situation is worse than what it was. So, because the DA does not want to deal with the problems of poor people. You know, the reason why I had a fallout with them, because I don't know, I don't think I was naive. I was just really fed up with the ANC corruption at the time. That's when I then decided to throw my head in the ring. I was an impression that DA meant well. They wanted a non-racial South Africa. They will take accountability for the financial situation of black people and the inequality. I was the mayor of the city of Johannesburg. You know why they wanted me out? Because they said I'm an EFF mayor. I take the residents' money to provide services to poor people. And this is something I want to avoid, using our numbers in the city of Johannesburg, that we don't give ANC that opportunity, because if ANC is going to allow DA to control them, I'm afraid the people of Alexander, Soweto, and so forth, who service delivery will be a thing of the past. They will want you to cut grass in Sandton, like they used to say to me that I'm failing the residents who are taxpayers. I must cut grass in Sandton. The residents are complaining. And that is not going to happen. All of us, black and white, we've got a responsibility for the poor and the marginalized in our country. And we are not, as ActionSA, going to allow DA to dictate this to us. All of us must take responsibility to take people of Alexander out of the misery. Look at what's happening to them today. Those people are not stealing electricity because they are thieves. They are desperate. ANC has allowed millions of foreign nationals to come into our country, take advantage, take their jobs. We're not looking for people to work as in restaurants and be drivers. South Africans can drive, you know. I can tell you, when I first bought my brand new car in 1981, I did not know how to. I'd never driven a car before. So now all of a sudden, do I need foreigners to come and drive trucks and vehicles? No. Yes, South Africa was built at the back of migrants, and we must continue attracting people of the world to come to our country, and they must bring in the necessary skills, they must bring in foreign currency, and they mustn't bring it through sofas and mattresses. They must bring it through the Reserve Bank. That is what we want. And when they are here, they must respect our laws.
All right. And very quickly, so your relationship or your arrangement with the ANC currently stands for a Gauteng, and there's nothing that's going to destabilize that. They just need to implement some of the terms.
Well, it's up to the ANC. If they're not really happy to work with us, it's up to them. We're waiting for them. As soon as they're happy to press the button.
All right.
I thought this week we'll have a new mayor, but there have been delays, and I understand, obviously, they had two council meetings and so forth. So I'll give them the chance and I'll see. If we meet on Sunday, then next week we might have a new mayor and a new Johannesburg.